They said the restraints were for our safety. But whose safety did they mean? We escaped to the holding room, but not the experiment. Every breath feels borrowed, every shadow watches back. And in this room, the walls remember more than we do. This is episode 3 of the Psychic Odyssey, the Trappist Enigma, also known as The Awakening. Episode 3, The Archive. The heavy rumbling of the massive obsidian block stilled, but the memory of its chaos clung to the air like smoke after fire. I stumbled back, my body betraying me with a shudder that rippled from gut to fingertips. It could have crushed us, smeared us into nothing but dark stains on this sterile floor. The thought carved an acid trail down my throat, thickening it to silence. Around me, Emil, John, Kathy, and Sarah scrambled to get upright, their movements frantic, twitchy, half-formed, as if the strings that animated them had frayed. Their faces twitched, mid-motion, caught between panic and something worse. Their mouths opened wide, yet no sound emerged, leaving only the wet, animal stink of our terror, thickening the room with sweat, bleach, and the sharp metallic tang of fear woven into a suffocating fog. I dared to glance back at the ominous block. It hung there, humming. The obsidian block didn't just hum, it breathed, then pulsed. Faint sparks licked along its surface, shifting, flickering, like the heartbeat of something far too large to understand. Strange symbols, fractured hieroglyphs, etched by a madman's hand, writhed along its edges, flashing in a sickly gray light. The symbols raced along the surface, wrong angles, broken patterns that twitched at the edge of sight. They were just symbols. They were moving inside my mind, carving grooves I couldn't erase. A hard, thunderous pulse, a heartbeat stuttering like a hangman's last gasp. The block pulsed, a slow, sick rhythm. My teeth rattled like a glass in a bone cathedral. With each throb, the symbols burrowed deeper, etching themselves into my optic nerves. They weren't just writing, they were rewriting. Then it spoke, not in sound, in scars. Look, it hissed. A voice like a scalpel sliding between vertebrae. My vision blurred at the edges, the symbols writhing like insects under glass. They weren't just etched into the stone. They were etching themselves into me. Something inside me stirred. This unusual feeling coursed through me, cold and hot at the same time. As I touched the obsidian block, fragmented visions bombarded my mind. Not just of the hostile hospital bed with its bulky restraints, but of the past, my past, with all of its failures. Oh, I wish I heard the mellow voice of my father saying, "How's Daddy's baby girl?" with a dashing smile as he brushed his index finger to my nose. But what did I hear? The echo of my mom's shrill, screaming at me. "Keep it to yourself!" The block showed me the funeral again, but wrong. Mother's corpse sat up in the coffin, her milky eyes fixed on me. "You knew," she mouthed. "You let me." The block, hard, prickly, and warming. It isn't just warm, it's feverish, pulsing like a living organ. Another blood-curdling pulse. hard. It didn't help. They burned behind my eyelids. The symbols reminded me of my old archaeology class, where they'd whispered of languages not meant for human tongues, Egyptian glyphs. Yes, but these were wrong, unnatural. Its angles fought against the eye. They spun, dissolved, reformed languages not meant for human eyes. Glyphs that didn't just describe reality, but rewrote it. This was that. The shiver cut down my spine, not cold, deeper, like someone dropped ice directly into my blood. Don't stir, a voice whispered in my head. It sees you back. I couldn't look away, couldn't even blink. It was alive, watching, judging. What was its purpose? I wiped blood from my nose, didn't remember it starting. A wrench of dread tightened in my gut, cold and serrated, slicing away rational thought. My legs trembled, quaking like reeds in a storm. The logical part of me, the tiny surviving ember, tried to reason. Maybe the block held answers. Maybe it was a key, a map, salvation. Maybe it was a loaded gun pressed against our skulls. Look, the block hissed at me. Did the others hear it? Am I losing my mind? I glimpsed my arms and the hands that touched the block. My arms still bore the black bruises from the injections, tiny blooms of violet and sickly yellow across my skin. My wrist ached from the too tight restraints, evidence that whoever had dragged us here didn't care if we lived through this, only that we served some purpose. Was there a way to speak to it, to open it? Or were we already trapped inside whatever ritual had begun? The way insects thrash inside a spider's web, doomed long before the fangs descend. Kathy, Emile, John, and Sarah stood slack-jawed, now eyes vacant, trembling, their expressions had flattened, drained of self. Yet there's something invisible slipped into their minds. Though the rest of us weren't watching. Were they hypnotized? Why wasn't I? Sudden monstrous blare tore through the space, a deafening bass note that shattered thought. I clapped my hands to hear my ears. Pain lanced through my skull, the pressure rupturing the thin membrane of balance inside my head. The world swam sideways. The air became thick, gelatinous, sticky in my throat. Then a blast of searing white light. It rippled from the block in a wave, flattening the air, buffeting through my hair, across my face. A low gut boom vibrated through my soles of my boots, rattling my knees until they knocked like castanets. Instinct screamed at me to dive for cover, but where? There was no shelter, only sterile emptiness, and that black monolith humming with terrible knowledge. An old injury, singing a warning through my nerves. My muscles shook with effort, either from old wounds or primal fear. Beside me, Emile, John, and Sarah resembled grotesque caricatures, frozen mid-movement, their slack faces twisted upward as if waiting judgment from some unseen god. Emile swayed. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. His eyes, glassy, fixed, on something I couldn't see. Sarah clutched her wrist, trembling so hard her fingers blurred. Her face, contorted in agony, or maybe it was just fear. High-pitched brawl. High-pitched bawl. Sarah's scream wasn't human. Higher pitch to even higher pitch. It was the sound of a rabbit realizing the snare has teeth. Her fingers spasmed, not in fear but in recognition. The block had shown her something, the same thing her so-called friends had whispered before they had left her bleeding in the school stairwell. You're nothing. Her eyes green, her green eyes twitching like a marionette. The block was speaking to her, and whatever it said, it was peeling her apart from the inside. John stared at the block like it was telling him a secret. Panic knifed through my gut. Why weren't they fighting it? Why wasn't anyone fighting it? Was I the only one still awake? A low thrumming, boom, ripped the air apart. The sensation vibrated through our bodies, from our ribs to our teeth and even our skulls. Kathy hurriedly wiped the rupture of blood from her nose. Sarah shrieked, "No, Daddy! Don't throw patches against the wall!" Kathy hastily staggered next to Sarah, wiping the flowing blood from her nose. She looked into Sarah's eyes and held her. "It's okay, Sarah. It's okay," she whimpered. She brushed the sandy, sweaty locks from Sarah's forehead. "You killed Patches, Daddy!" Sarah's howl turned into a hard cry. A river of tears flowed from her wide, red eyes. Kathy's nose bled as she caressed Sarah's cheek, her pupils dilating with borrowed pain. Lights burst behind my eyes. I staggered back, gagging, ears blown out by pressure. Another blast. Boom! Deeper this time. More deliberate, like footsteps from something too big, too wrong, dragging itself closer. The air crackled. The block's surface split down the center. Not smoothly, violently, like a wounded thing tearing itself open from the inside. It craggily seemed tore itself open, belching a wave of cold and dust. My stomach lurched, the primitive part of me screaming, "Run!" But we didn't run. We watched, froze. The door gaped wide, slamming back against a wall. With a deafening crack, dust billowed out, thick as smoke. We turned as one, drawn like moths to a new and darker flame. The door opened onto absence. Not darkness, the hunger behind it. The air tasted of static and spoiled milk. Something shifted in the void, not a shape. The idea of a shape? It didn't want us to enter. It wanted us to remember we'd always been inside. But something was in there. Something breathing, slow and heavy, shifting its weight, watching. Waiting. A whisper touched the base of my spine. Not in English. Older. Hungrier. The glyphs morphed, as it said what sounded like a mangled version of our names. The letters unraveling like wet thread. Amelia, tisk, tisk. You'll never see it coming. Amelia, meal. Don't do what comes natural. He looked sheepishly at us. His gaze seemed distant. He huffed and slumped shoulders. It's a reminder for me, my childhood, the things that got left behind. Memories of my childhood home being foreclosed, watching strangers carry away his toys. John, trust and weakness. How sad for you. Sarah, they'll never see you. Katha, you couldn't fix her. Do you think? Cold welcoming. It wanted us inside. No, it wanted something inside of us. Through squinted, tearing eyes, I saw a shadow expanse beyond the door, a void where outlines struggled to coalesce into anything familiar, a black ocean of a room, waiting, breathing, and something inside it, something vast, watching us back. Darkness swallowed the room beyond, thick and absolute. My eyes could not, would not adjust. The cavernous air pressed and heavy, laced with scent of dust, rot, and something sweeter.
clawing trace of a nutty aroma, the bruised hint of a spice, like the breath of old paper slowly forgetting itself. I let myself taste the air, a sickly sweetish smell of almond mixed with just a hint of vanilla. Like old books, even older papers. The almond vanilla stench thickened, clotting in my throat. Not just memory, invasion, seized by the images of my grandmother's attic, which melted around me, the oak desk warping into the hospital gurney where they'd strapped me down. Her suicide note yellowed at the edges, now scrawled in the same glyphs as the block. A cracking voice. "You'll watch me die twice, Amelia." I wrenched myself back, but the desk remained. And atop it, a fresh page wet with ink. Recognition ignited long-forgotten hurtful memories. I squeezed my eyes shut. I tasted a salty tear upon my lips. Why had she written that note? Why didn't anyone listen to me when I told them about my dream? More like a nightmare about her death. My eyes fluttered out of sync with each other, but the dark stayed as the memory faded. It wasn't just the absence of light. It was the presence of something else, something slow and thick and breathing. I swallowed hard, tasting acridness on the back of my tongue. I barely recognized my own voice when I spoke. It sounded wrong in the heavy air, smaller than it should have been, like something pretended to be my voice. My whispered words broke the silence, carrying a sense of caution and hope. "We need to be cautious," I whispered. "This might be the key or the lock." The others drifted closer, our movement hesitant, mechanical, as if something unseen had already begun pulling the strings from inside that suffocating void. We stood tense with anticipation. Sarah stood too still. Her delicate little hand clutched her chest. Emile shifted closer to the doorframe, shoulder brushing it like he needed to anchor himself to something real. John's eyes had a strange twinkle in the half-light, wide and empty, catching the flicker of the dying bulb overhead. The bulb buzzed, flickered, buzzed again, like a wasp caught behind thin glass. The bulb didn't just flicker, it gasped, each pulse shorter, weaker, like a lab rat's dying heartbeat. We stepped inside, the space expansive and cluttered. The light from the hall gutted behind us, a final dying star against the infinite. Its feeble reach revealed scattered wreckage, yellowed journals slumped against battered shelves, cracked photographs frozen mid-smile, papers that rasped and shuffled with the faintest shift of air, like dry tongues whispering secrets too old to remember. Every breath tasted of forgotten things. Each item held the potential to unveil the secrets of our captors, their motives. Emile brushed past me, his sleeve trailing across a file cabinet, blooming rust, his face taut and bloodless. He jerked the drawer, but it didn't open, so he braced his foot and gave it a hard yank. He sent sparkling little red particles into the air. He thumbed through torn folders. His hands looked like little misshapen claws as he thumbed through the files. He retrieved one, slapped it open, and read it. He mumbled to himself, and at times just mouthed the words. "I looked for Kathy." Emile's hands moved like a thief's, practiced quiet. The paper he palmed wasn't just a clue, it was a receipt. Item 1, male subject to age 12, condition, viable, price, $45,000. His little brother's worth typed neatly in Korean new. His jaw clenched so hard I heard enamel crack. Sarah clutched a sheaf of brittle notes to her chest, her hands trembling so badly they cracked. The papers didn't rustle, they exhaled, their ink bleeding into the air like smoke. John paused at a desk, half swallowed by darkness, rummaging through the creaky drawers, fingers ghosting over a cracked leather journal, his gaze hollow, unreachable. Its leather binding shuddered like a sleeping sheep, pages stuck together like dried flesh. The journal wasn't hidden. It was waiting. John's fingers brushed the cracked leather, and it twitched. A spasm subtle as a dying man's last breath. He recoiled, but too late. The cover yawned open on its own, pages fanning in a breathless gasp. He studied the embossed symbols. They seemed to glint and sparkle, communicating unspoken words. He half tilted his head. I've seen these symbols before, in my dreams, and I think they're calling us home. He turned a few pages, scanning them, probing for answers. Why keep us here restrained under the weight of ghastly experiments? He shook his head, turned another page. His eyes sparkled. Then the journal fanned to the middle, fast like an unseen hand, to one page, which showed a star map, noticed as a place in another universe. Trappist circled, but the ink, fresh, as if drawn in blood minutes ago. John spoke no louder than a faint, distant whisper as he read the haphazardly scrawled, some words scrubbed out, others blacked out, others lined out, but still readable. Page 1. Project Ladder Rung. Official seal redacted. Phase 3 trials confirmed. Exposure to Trappist D atmospheric samples. See Addendum 9A. Accelerates psi activation 89% of subjects. Side effects are irreversible. Kathy's fingers twitched, nails digging into her palms. She smelled it first. Burnt hair and ozone. The ozone coated her tongue metallic and sour. The lab's sterilization protocols. She inhaled sharply, like someone just punched her in the gut. They're lying. John, with furrowed eyes, shot her a confused look. How did she know? The numbers are wrong. It's 100%. They just kill the ones who don't change. She looked trapped, like a prisoner in solitary confinement. Sarah's gaze broke from the photo, which fell out of the papers. She rifled through. Kathy, what are you talking about? Her stomach soured with those words. She crumpled the blurred photo of what appeared to be the lab technicians. The color of her face grew darker, redder. Her cheeks puffed. Her anger flared. The folded photo smoldered to a burning flame in her fingertips. The heat in her hands made her drop it. She stamped out the flames. The burn edges framed the faces of her family. Their eyes blackened out with marker, snarling. They turned us into fucking lab rats. Amelia and I looked at each other in bewilderment, holding our breath. We knew. The stench in the air got thicker. The pulse of the room beat faster. Emil's stolen manifest vibrated in his pocket. The date, 1987, shifted to 1979, his birthday. He slammed the file cabinet shut, sweating. This isn't science, it's harvesting. John's eyes flickered black as he continued thumbing through the cryptic writing of the journal. The writing in the margins almost illegible. Jagged letters and numbers scribbled quickly by a shaky hand. Note, containment breach in Sector 12 suggests samples retain autonomous properties post-terrestrial separation. Recommended immediate sterilization of affected staff per protocol Hydra. My stomach turned and pitched hearing the word sterilization. I gagged, wiped my mouth. Palm now inked with symbols. A vision. My mother's corpse on a gurney, stitched with glyphs. Page 2. Margin scrawls. Different handwriting, still shaky. They're not stones, they're eggs. The symbols. They're not language, they're heartbeats. The planet isn't a place, it's a womb. And we're feeding it. John's low baritone voice broke the caught silence of the rest of us watching Kathy. Suddenly, Kathy doubled over, her hands clutched her abdomen, clawing at her abdomen. Trying to dig something out, her voice splintered into two tones, hers and a child's whimper. It's growing inside me. The phantom pressure swelled behind her navel, something squirming. I didn't want to watch her. A thin trail of black fluid leaked from her left nostril. Not blood, ink. Her words seemed to confirm what I had already realized. Our doom. Kathy retched and screamed out. Guttural half-sob. It's hungry. It's so... God, it's so hungry. Black lean clinked from her nose, thick as motor oil, strung between her lips. The walls pulsed like flesh. My bowels soured. When I heard John say, not the way he said it, but one word, punched me. Womb. It hooked into my gut. My vision blurred, the walls breathed, pulsing in time with Kathy's convulsions. I clenched my stomach. I felt the phantom squirming too. A broken whisper slipped from my tongue. It's not a planet. It's alive. Emil frantically emptied his pockets, cutting his hands on paper edges. Bugs, bugs! He hoarded paper scraps swarmed like insects in his pocket. The shipping manifest melted, revealing a child's handwriting. Emil, come play. Sarah's rage twisted into terror. The block is... Her eyes rolled back in her head. We could only see the whites, like before with the guards. Her throat bulged, a rasp in her voice. It's the obsidian block. It's hatching in here. She scratched it and beat at her head. John's voice sounded like an echo from a tunnel. Why did he keep reading and speaking those unholy words from the despicable journal? Sarah's little leg kicked an old wheelchair. It squeaked and creaked and slowly rolled. Her tiny muffled voice, as if the room swallowed it. The growing echo of John's voice resonated within me, within us all. Page 3. Blood-smeared footnote. Subject Gamma 7's last words before ocular rupture. The architects say we're late. A sickening pop echoed through the room, like a cork pulled from a skull. The black ink from my hollow eyes stretched towards the walls, forming gigantic spindly silhouettes. Too many joints, too many eyes. The spindles shifted to mirror the Trappist D constellation floating in the debris. Exact matches. Sarah's whole body, while standing, seized. Her muscles locked so hard I heard her tendons creak. Pow, bang, cluck. Shelf imploded. The debris hung in midair, forming a rotating constellation matching the planetary system Trappist D. Her mouth opened, nothing came out. She struggled to scream. No sound, her vocal cords paralyzed. The words boiled through Kathy. She noticed me staring at her. Her head snapped naturally towards me. Then all went black. I couldn't see. I cried out, fumbling with my fingers to rub my eyes. For a split second, my eyes were gone, just hollow pits oozing. I shuddered to think maybe the thick substance was that same black ink from Kathy's nostrils. Words spilled from my mouth with a delirious laugh. Late for dinner. Do you hear the dinner bell? They're sitting at the table. They're setting the table. My sight blurred. I squinted to see Emil stretching wildly at his head, tearing out clumps of his dark hair. Bloody fingernails scraped his skull as he wailed, "Make it stop! Make it stop!" He banged his fist against his head. "Please, please, please, make it stop!" "Make what?" I stammered. Kathy's screams may have faded, but the echo remains. What would you have done in her place? These are the questions we'll grapple with next time. If this journey into the psyche has unsettled you, you don't have to process it alone. Follow the podcast on Facebook, Andrea Allen Writer, Instagram, Andrea Allen Writer, or Andrea A. Writer, to connect with the other listeners. For deeper dives into the lore, I'm going to be starting a Substack, and that will be interesting. You'll get files and dossiers and other interesting things. And remember, the best way to counter fear is with company. Share this with a friend, because in the dark, it's better to have someone to hold on to, or at least throw in front of you.